2024 Canadian Grand Prix notes. John's quali notes. Number 1, Perez, come on man. Number 2, Logan, well done to get through Q1 and best quali ever. Probably too late to save his seat, but good for him. Number 3, Piastri becoming a main class act. Number 4, Max, lots of trouble, but he put in the laps when needed. Number 5, Magnussen, fighting hard for a job and doing well for Q2. Number 6, Russell, huge moment in turn 4, Q2 massive control to hold onto it. Number 7, Hamilton, showing great confidence in the car. Number 8, Ferrari, disaster and a very unhappy team meeting will no doubt follow. Will they pull it together or fall apart? Very bad strategy. Number 9, Mercedes, playing it very cool and calm. Number 10, McLaren, they have to be disappointed that they weren't clear to do more on newer tires. Number 11, very exciting Q3. Russell and Max on the same time? Wow. Danny Rick in front of Lewis, extraordinary sessions. Who says this is boring? Who says this is dominated by one guy? Don't lose heart, fans. It is a great sport that sometimes takes a while to become good. But when it does come to be very good. Dick's Grand Prix notes. Hey gang, my thoughts on the Canadian GP. Number 1, the very changeable conditions throughout the weekend made for an interesting race. The fact that rain was supposed to impact quali and it didn't means that the teams and drivers in each qualifying session had to make their, quote, banker laps, unquote, in each session really good because they were always believing that the rain was just about to start falling on the track. So the pressure was really on the driver to get in a good lap straight away. Number 2, it seemed like all of the drivers in Q3 were groaning about mistakes that they made during their final qualifying lap. Definitely a case of woulda, coulda, shoulda. Number 3, the George and Max literal tie in qualifying times was outstanding. Number 4, the race itself was pretty interesting. I'm not sure why George made the mistakes he made, but they cost him the race as his car, as well as Lewis's, were pretty fast all weekend. Number 5, Albon was hugely unlucky to get taken out by Sainz. Number 6, speaking of Ferrari, what on earth happened to them? 7, Mercedes looked awfully strong, as did McLaren. McLaren is not a shock, but Mercedes is a bit of a question for me. Was this strength track specific, or was it a result of the upgrades finally starting to be understood and exploited? Number 8, Haas taking a gamble and starting the race on wet tires was a brilliant roll of the dice, and I applaud them for it. Had it rained early in the race, we might have been looking at a very different race. Number 9, good points for Aston Martin considering how tough Imola and Monaco were. Number 10, finally, brilliant drive by Max and outstanding strategy and execution by the Red Bull team in super tricky conditions. Sabrina's Grand Prix notes. Fantastic notes, Dick. Here's mine. 1, I thoroughly enjoyed this race. There was jeopardy throughout, to take a note from our friend Choi. Even though Max ultimately won, this felt different than other races this season and even most recent seasons. We watched the drivers and teams adapt and push with a hope that possibly they might close the gap to Max. At certain points during the race, it seemed like one of them actually might prevail. Number 2, I think the limited data of free practice must have in some ways equalized the team's efforts. They had to go off instinct, history, and strategy more than most of the races so far. Number 3, I enjoyed watching strategic decisions of the teams. Rain, no rain, when will it rain, how long, and how much. Number 4, this race and even quali showed that F1 is right now about micro-timing. These teams are close to each other, as are the drivers. Red Bull is pulling forward still, but it's not as easy as we've been accustomed to. Number 5, good effort by Yuki, unfortunate ending. Number 6, frustrated for Ferrari. How is there a power unit issue? I also think the limited free practice time affected their setup and didn't help them out. Monaco and Montreal are different, so to think that they could have pulled it out again was quite optimistic. Number 7, McLaren's did a great job throughout, but the gambles and calls just didn't pay off. I really enjoyed watching both work through and display their skill and determination. Number 8. Russell tried. Unfortunately, when it was critical time, his focus seemed to have slipped. He said he was happy with the podium, but I don't think it's as good as it could have been for him. He likely wants the team to see him as a leader. They allowed him and Lewis to race, but he wasn't able to stay as calm as needed to close the gap to Norris and take back P2. I don't know if that's because of any aspect of the Lewis squabbling, even in a micro sense. Number 9. Max seemed to have appreciated the challenge, and Red Bull has a team that was able to continue even though they had issues. Max was reluctant to discuss the problem, but it's clear something isn't working with the car.